What's the zone?
It's a place that you go when you're making stuff when where time doesn't exist anymore. Time doesn't exist anymore. Time doesn't exist anymore. Time doesn't exist anymore.
The zone is a place of focused and unfocused creative expression that physically alters our sense of time and reality. There are two main focuses of the zone. Extreme focus. I am completely focused on the wants, needs, and interactions of my character. Now, being focused as an actor, to me, means being focused on specific aspects of acting and being a character when I'm on stage or when I'm on a film set. And those main things that I focus on are the intentions of my character, my objectives, the different obstacles that my character will face within the scene, and also what the other characters are saying to me. Because what the other characters say will also impact how I go about changing my acting tactics, my character's tactics to reach their objective and just proceeding on with the scene. But focus, for me as an actor, is being laser focused on specific things that'll make the character come to life. Unfocus. There's a tunnel that forms where the world outside of the character's world disappears. The best way that I can describe unfocus outside of theater, first of all, is like a daydream. When you're daydreaming, you're kind of unfocused on the world around you. You're in a daze. Your mind wanders when you're unfocused. And when you're in a daydream, your mind is wandering from one topic to the next. And you don't have a specific topic or intention with what you're doing. You're just sitting there bored. Oh, maybe I'll think about playing Magic the Gathering cards, or maybe I'm thinking about a shift that I have coming up at work, or some other tasks that I have, and I'm just free flowing my thinking. Now, when I'm in a state of unfocus on stage or on a set, all time and reality outside of that world that I'm trying to act in kind of disappears. I forget about all the things that I have for the next week, like all the work plans, all the other friend, family plans. It all kind of disappears. Now, the important part of reaching the zone for me as an actor is that I need to have both extreme focus, where I'm only focusing on the character's intentions, wants, needs, objectives, and obstacles within the scene, but I'm also unfocused on all the crap outside of the character's world. All of my personal stuff is out the window, and I'm not thinking about that. I'm only daydreaming. I'm only in that state of unfocus and focus about the character. That's when I'll reach the zone, is when I have mastered both being extreme focus and learning to unfocus all the other stuff.
I would say that the zone, in a creative sense, is just when you're sort of, well, actually, I remember learning about it in like psychology classes, where it's just like when you lose track of time, because you're just so focused on what it is that you're doing, and you're kind of just so sort of in love with it to a certain degree that you just kind of lose you lose your sense of time and everything going on around you.
how do I reach a state of focus as an actor when there's so much stuff to think about? Stop! Stop! So there's 3 things that I do to try and focus on being my character in a rehearsal process when I'm rehearsing at home. Let me break those 3 things down one at a time. Chakra 1 is all in the feet, and it focuses on if the character is grounded in the world that they live in. Chakra 2 is in the pelvis region, and it focuses on the character's emotional memory. Chakra 3 is in the character's solar plexus, and it focuses on the character's ability to make their own independent decisions. The 4th chakra is located in the heart, and it focuses on the character's ability to love and be loved by those around them. The 5th chakra is in the throat and the mouth, and it focuses on the character's ability to have a creative identity and speak wisdom. Chakra 6 is in the character's eyes, and it focuses on their perception and their ability to follow their intuition. The 7th chakra is located in the crown of the character's head, and it focuses all on the character's awareness and self-knowledge. The first thing that I do before I get into rehearsal to get into the zone is I prepare. And my preparation is all about writing out the character's 7 chakras. And I make sure to focus in the beginning on what the demon chakra is that's holding that character back, and how does that character change from the beginning of the story to the end of the story where their chakras finally align and they become the best version of themselves. Now, preparation is important to me with getting into the zone because it's All the things that I write down about the background of the character is the roadmap that I can follow to reach the zone for my character. And it's super important that I do this preparation work, because once I get into like rehearsals on stage or anything and I have all that knowledge from preparing in my head, I can kind of play around with it and improvise. And that becomes even more so the more I practice and the closer I get to the actual performance date. Because once the performance date comes on and I've prepared so much and I know my character in and out, I can play around on stage. And the same with being in a movie set. I can play around with the character when I'm on set and being recorded. Now, a quick disclaimer, this methodology of preparation and learning to write about the character's chakras is not my own idea. I learned this from one of my professors, Ronnie, in SUNY Purchase College. I really learned the most from her as to how to use the chakras to open up my character more and make the character connect more to me. If you really want to learn more about them and go deeper into the chakras and how you can use them to unlock the character, I would take her movement class. I warm up with physical challenges because they sharpen my focus to what is only in front of me. I must hold a plank for 1 minute. Or I must do 20 push-ups. Or I must do 15 pull-ups. Nothing else matters but the physical challenge at hand. Now, the one thing that I do to get into the zone is physical activity, because I feel like exercise, it gets my brain focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's completing the sets or reps that I'm doing, or completing the amount of time that I have to get to, or the amount of mileage I have to get to when I'm running. I feel like one of the biggest parts of getting into extreme focus is that you're only thinking about one specific thing. And so when I'm exercising, I really am in that extreme focus mode. I'm also putting a challenge to my body, which getting into extreme focus is a challenge as it is, but having that additional physical challenge just helps to push me over the edge and push my brain to that extreme focus mode. So I always plan on warming up before I go to rehearsing, because it gets my body warmed up as well as my mind. I think that's the key, is mind and body both need to be at one in order to try to get into that focus. The third thing that I do in order to get into the zone for rehearsal is meditate. I think it's very important to meditate before getting into rehearsal, because it helps me to get into that state of unfocus from the outside world, and it helps me to only think about my character and think about the circumstances of the scene, where my character is coming from, as well as what state my characters in during the scene. It makes me more focused on my preparation. Meditation also helps me to take a breath and to slow down. So all in all, meditation is super important for me to get into the zone, because it helps me reach that state of unfocus from the outside world and only think about my character. Now, by using all of these three things, preparation, exertion, and meditation, I know that I'll be able to get into the zone during a rehearsal, because I'll have followed all the steps that I need in order to be perfectly ready to get into character. The one sort of caveat to all that is, even though I do all that rehearsal and I do all that preparation to get into the zone of my character, it all kind of goes out the window once I actually make it to set, or when I make it to stage, because all of that fear and stress of being in front of people and having an audience to perform in front of washes over. So when I'm on set or when I'm on stage and I'm trying to think of all my preparation and stuff, you can't really think about it. You just do it. Now, this was my big dilemma. I remember the first time that I got onto set of a short film that I was working on with some of my friends. I would try to listen to music, and I would try to meditate on set and do everything that I could in order to get into the zone. But it seemed like all my preparation and everything was just kind of gone, and that I was trying so hard to get into the zone, but I couldn't force it. Once we got behind the camera, and we started to run the scenes and everything and film, I could reach the zone in those moments. But once the momentum stopped and once the energy stopped, it was like I was immediately back to myself. One of the journal entries that I have from that cold February day of when I was first observing the zone was that there was a moment when I was the character and I felt the joy, hope, euphoria, and freedom that the butter could give to the character, because the butter was super important to him. So this struggle for me to try and reach the zone when I got to set made me wonder. It made me wonder if there were other artists who also struggled with reaching the zone, as well as how did other artists reach the zone, and what were the different things that they did beforehand to create the maximum creative expression they could when they were in that zone. So the next part of my journey took me up north. I traveled to Massachusetts to interview my aunt. My aunt has been a painter for a good amount of years now, and she's a great artist, and I just wanted to pick apart her brain being a visual artist, and how she tapped into the zone. Could her reaching the zone be similar to how I reach it as an artist? And what were the different steps that she took from what I take to get into the zone?
I would say the zone is when I'm in a space that I'm loose and I'm just reacting to the environment. So a great example would be if I'm painting outside, say at the ocean, and I'm in the moment in the ocean. So I'm looking at things, I'm still doing composition, I'm still doing color, but it's almost as if when I paint, I stand back and go, oh, like what is that? Like to me, that's in the zone. And for me, the zone is when I'm being playful. So when I play, which I'm playing here, everything flows, as opposed to if I start to really overthink the painting and think about, okay, this color here, this here, and then I can get tight and overpaint the painting.
What does it feel like to be loose? Like you're describing, like being loose is kind of like in the zone for you. What does that
feel like?
Like, yeah, how do you know like when you're loose compared to when
tight.
when you're tight, yeah.
Well, I would say when I just am able to pick up the paintbrush and just paint. I mean, I have a plan. It's not like I'm just wildly painting, but it, when I paint and I step and look back, it's almost like I'm relaxed and just going with what comes out, versus being too overly planning.
Okay.
I do planning, but it's kind of like planning is when you set up you set up your painting. So that's planning, like you want the composition to be right. But once you've set everything up, then it's like time to play. Because you put the colors in, you do whatever comes to you to do. So that's how I know I'm in the zone.
Okay, so it's kind of like you're in the zone when you're almost like improvising.
Yes.
Like
yes.
And yeah.
Right. And when I'm in the zone, when I look at my palette, I'm like, oh, I think I'll try some magenta there, and then just try it, because you can always change it if it isn't right, or if you don't think it's right.
Now you talked a little bit about like how preparation helps you to like know what you want to paint and helps you to get in the zone a little bit.
Yes.
Could you explain like what preparation is for like you as a painter and like what you do to prepare and?
Yes. So when I'm going to paint, and say I'm outdoors and I'm choosing a spot to paint, I'll first go around and look at all the different spots, and then I'll find something that I really like, and then I will sketch it out just with a pencil, or a Sharpie, and I'll sketch it in my sketchbook, and I'll try different compositions. So I might have the ocean over here in one of them, and something else, and I switch it up so it isn't all the same, and then I figure or feel like what composition works. And so once I get that composition that works, then I work from my sketch, and I'll just paint it in. So we'll paint in some trees, I'll paint in this, I'll generally lay it out. And it doesn't matter what color paint it is, it's just I'll lay it out. And once it's laid out and I'm comfortable and say, okay, that's the right composition, then it's time to play.
Yeah.
And work it in, because I know I have all the things in the right spot.
And what is composition?
Well, composition is when you have a painting, you want a person to come into the painting and stay with the painting. So you have to do it in such a way that if the person, like in this one, for example, you could come in here, this part of it, but you can see how it's flowing, and your eye, comes up here, and then you're like, oh, and so it keeps you engaged in the flow versus like going over here and then just going off of the painting. So always have to consider, and it can be done like, of course, this is a marsh, so it's flowing, but it can also be done by the use of color. And so when you have a focal point, each painting has to have a focal point. And the focal point is in the thirds of the painting. So like here is the third. So the focal point could be here, it could be here, or here, or here. And the focal point is where you have your darkest dark and your lightest light. So your biggest contrast. So that's where somebody enters the painting. If you don't have a good composition, then people will look at something in the painting, but then they'll go on to the next painting because it's not interesting.
Yeah.
So I would say with composition, you're looking for your point of interest.
How do you get into the zone?
I think for a painter, it's really important to not be stiff and approach the easel, just approach the easel. So I do it by listening to music, like I might listen to disco music, and to just get the juices flowing.
Yeah.
So that when I get up to the easel, I'm already energized and alert and, and moving. But some sort of movement or music is what I do. And it can be, and beside that, it can be the atmosphere too. Like if I go to the beach, I'm in the zone at the beach. The waves, you can hear the waves, or you can hear the birds, and being outdoors gets me in the zone also.
After having the interview with my Aunt Maymay, I learned that a lot of the ways that she got into the zone were also very similar to how I got into the zone. First off, there was composition, which was the same concept as preparation. Composition is very similar to the preparation work that I do with writing out my character's chakras. Because if I don't write out the energy analysis of my character, then I won't understand really who my character is or where I want to go with my character when I get onto the stage or when I get onto set. Another big way that Maymay got into the zone sometimes was she would listen to music. This was also very similar to my type of meditation as well as my movement. Before I get into character, I'll warm up and I'll listen to music the same way because it helps me to focus and to get into that zone quicker and almost get into my creativity flow quicker. There was one last thing that really stuck with me after interviewing Maymay, and that was that when she was in the environment and actually out in nature, it helped her to get into the zone better because she was in the same environment that she was painting, so she could almost capture that essence by being there and put that essence of that environment of nature into her painting. So my next question is, does setting affect how I get into the zone? My next observation about setting had to do with the concept of synthetic stress. The stage. My synthetic stress environment. When I get onto stage, I see the audience in front of me. My heart starts beating. I start twitching and my palms get sweaty, my armpits start to sweat like fire hydrants. How do I perform as a character in front of these people? I observed that whenever I try to access the zone when I'm acting, I am usually in a place of synthetic stress. For example, the stage in front of an audience and the set, on set when I'm meeting new people. The best way that I can describe synthetic stress is that it's a stress that we put upon ourselves that activates our fight or flight, but we aren't actually in any danger. For example, when I'm on stage and I'm in front of the audience, I get really nervous. I get really sweaty and anxious because I have to perform in front of this audience. But I'm actively putting myself into this scenario of being in front of an audience. And I'm willingly putting myself into this environment of stress for myself, because part of my fears are being in front of an audience, forgetting lines, thinking of what the audience thinks of me up on stage. Those were kind of my biggest fears going into theater, was how could I get in front of an audience and actually be a character? Like, that's scary. By putting myself into these synthetic stress scenarios, it helps me to overcome my fears of being in front of an audience. And by challenging myself, I feel like I reach the zone easier, because by me challenging myself and doing these things, it helps me to get one step closer to the zone. And every time that I enter this synthetic stress environment, it's like I'm in an arena where it's me against my fears, and I have to choose to focus on all of my preparation and all of my character work, as well as take in the environment with the other characters that I'm with, to overcome those fears and things that are creeping in my mind to try and set me up for failure. All in all, I think being in these synthetic stress environments, for me, really helps me to focus in on what I have to do in the scene. The enemy to synthetic stress environments is just pure comfort. And there's sometimes with me, I might, in rehearsals, when I'm on stage and I'm rehearsing a scene with some of my friends or something, I might get too comfortable with the words that I have. I might get too comfortable with the people that I'm with on stage, so it becomes kind of just a hangout time where we're running lines. But in the back of my mind, I always have to keep the idea that, all right, this is prep for when I'm actually in front of an audience. Because if I get too comfortable, then I will lose focus of my character and all the other things that I'm trying to extreme focus on. I'll lose focus of that, and then all the other distractions will enter in. Something about the stress of the environment that just really helps me to stay alert for one thing, focused, and then also unfocused from the environment outside of the stage or set. My final observation is that I can't force the zone. I can only create the perfect environment physically and mentally for the zone to manifest itself. I can only access it when I challenge myself, when I face my fears, and when I've put in the hours of work to understand who my character is. The zone is my superpower, and I think it's everyone's superpower, because once I've reached the zone, I know that the art I am creating will have an impact on the real world. The zone is our real life superpower. Once we access the zone, we access our full potential of creative expression at the time of access. Our potential increases as our life experience and practice with reaching the zone increases. Each time that we reach the zone, we are greater than the last time we've accessed it. On the last day of shooting Butter, the recent short film I was in, the director and myself shot a monologue scene of my character. There were many setbacks to filming up to that point, but with each delay, I took the time to analyze my character deeper and deeper. By the time the day of the monologue shoot had come, I felt like the character Lockertish was a second skin. I was so prepared that I'd felt I could tap into the character and get into the zone at will. This was it. This was how I, as an actor, could reach the zone at will. It was all thanks to hours and hours of rehearsing, writing, reciting, more rehearsing, and even more writing. With all my questioning of how to get into the zone, it seemed so simple to me, practice. And yet, it still seems so complex every time that I take on a new character, because it's just the beginning of the process all over again, and I have to go through that challenge every time I take on a new character.
Trevor, we gotta film now.
Alright.
Well, I was thinking really hard about what I wanted as we were tussling around on the bearskin. See, I didn't even really know what I wanted yet at that point, but I still felt that whatever I did want was going to be more important than what you guys wanted. As is the folly of man, I guess. But in those splitting seconds, I reckoned real hard in my brain and thinking real hard about how I wasn't appreciating the butter's enough. Appreciating its real, sheer magnificence. How I could put that butter in a pan and think a black hole. Think a black hole that would swallow the whole universe in the pan. And everyone and everything would be gone. And that guy who invented butter in the first place never would have guessed that his invention had destroyed the whole world, or put it away, if you will. Well, I guess the guy didn't really invent it. It was probably some accident mixing milk and whatever else together. As a butter tester, I wouldn't really know how it's made. But anyways, that's what the universe is when you really think about it. An accident. Things just got mixed together, and then they made something. And they made this butter. The universe made this butter. But it was an accident, but it was a good thing. Like a black hole would be bad. But this here